To police officers, how are you feeling seeing how the situation was handled in Texas? This department has now created a situation where parents will show up to a future incident armed and not likely to take direction from officers on the scene. I'm a former police officer. I'm sickened by it. Especially since this is exactly the opposite response to an active shooter scenario than what the training dictates. In Europe at least, when you arrive at the scene of a suspected active shooter, you are taught to ignore the usual SOP in case of, for instance, a hostage situation or barricaded suspect. In those cases, you set up a perimeters and call in the SWAT team, who are equipped and trained to deal with that stuff. But in an active shooter scenario, you grab whatever gear you have in the trunk, and you go in, making as much noise as you can along the way. You shout, "Stop! Police!" at the top of your lungs and you push as fast as possible to the source of the shots. You don't stop to render aid to the wounded people you meet along the way, stepping over screaming victims if you have to. The reason for this approach is 1, to intervene and stop the killing as fast as possible, but also 2, that most active shooters turn the gun on themselves when they know law enforcement is closing in. You keep moving, shouting and shooting, anything to stop the situation either by neutralizing the gunman yourself, or better yet, have him ended himself. It's a risky and horrible part of the job, one that I was happy to never have had to experience in reality. But if you roll up to a situation like that and you're too scared to do what you're paid and entrusted to do, then hand in your badge and go flip fucking burgers. Disgusted. My department had an all-cops run-in strategy ready to go. We even had an airport stairs on a pickup truck to drive to the side of the school if it was a hostage situation on the second floor. We coordinated with firefighters to have multiple cops on the platform on top of the ladder on the fire trucks, and the fire trucks would drive us up to the sides of the school and the cops would make entry through the windows. We practiced breaking down the doors, and also practiced breaking through the dry wall and studs if the door was barricaded. We were told any cop who didn't go into a school shooting situation unless told by the chief otherwise would be fired. We were also told that if we kneeled on any suspect we would be fired, and the chief would recommend to the DA to charge us, and would give the evidence themselves. This was also well before BLM. When I see shitty cops clowning around I am pissed. That's why cops all over have bad names. It's because of clowns like these. I was a police officer back in the early for a little over 7 years, and my dad is a retired, lifelong military and civilian police officer. We were talking about this situation earlier today and we both agreed that rushing into that situation may have been our last actions as living humans, but we'd have done it. My dad said, better to die trying than to live being branded a coward and thinking what if. That whole part of protect and serve is an absolute in a situation where 7- and 8-year-old kids are being shot and them hanging around outside is unforgivable. I firmly believe that every officer that busied themselves tasing parents should, at a minimum, be fired and nationally blacklisted from ever being in law enforcement for life. Same for their chief. Edit 1. I used the whole protect and serve motto as an example of what they should be doing. Edit 2. I know there's not a blacklist for bad cops, but I wish there was. Pretty fucking angry. I am retired now, but taught active shooter response for over 10 years. Uvalde ISD chief should resign and turn in his credentials and get a job digging ditches. Thank goodness Bortak took the initiative, even if they waited and listened to Rwando for 30 minutes. Ashamed of this agency and their so-called chief. If the shooter is isolated, you wait because time is on your side to negotiate. If they are actively shooting people, action must be taken. Just because the SCOTUS says there's no duty to intervene, I think most law agencies' policy and, obviously, public opinion beg to differ. We should all be ashamed of the SCOTUS that would rule that police have no duty to intervene or to protect the public. In Britain, there was an attacker with a machete on London Bridge and our unarmed police officers ran towards him with only pepper spray and batons, literally, hitty sticks. In fact, one was an off-duty transport police officer with no gear at all. I can't fathom the slowness of the response in Texas. Actual law enforcement here. It's disgusting and I'm embarrassed. Training aside, and hearing about what you should do, by keyboard commandos. In this case, you're absolutely right. I've been present at active shooter situations, like the real ones. It's not a time to wait for orders or a scene commander. It's a time where you tell whoever is on the other end of the radio, hold the channel for emergencies. I only want to know when someone else is coming inside and from where. And you know what, it fucking sucks. My back hurt for 3 weeks afterwards, pushing through barricaded doors and feeling like I was walking into an ambush. It wasn't fun, but it's not supposed to be. It's your fucking job. From what I'm reading, seeing, it sounds like just general cowardice and lack of training. The only people who did the right thing were the SHE and Border Patrol agents who just heard it coming out and went in even though it wasn't their responsibility. Something that stuck with me throughout my tenure in the Army. When the time comes for you to rise up and save the day, you're not going to be a hero, you're going to default to your lowest level of training. Shit, small town. Departments are terrifying, and generally employ bottom-of-the-barrel people, in my limited, and probably pretentious, opinion. YMMV. Retired Leo. The words, disbelief, and, disgusted, hardly scratch the surface. Charge all of them with negligent homicide, involuntary manslaughter. To add to the points the others are making, imagine the effect on the children's parents. They already have the horror of their child being killed knowing that their last moments were filled with terror and pain, but that's now compounded by the thought that their child could have been saved, if it were not for the cowardice of the people they trusted to protect them. These poor souls are now broken. And this is a small town. I imagine these officers live there, the parents know their names and faces. Going to be some tense moments in the grocery aisle. And probably some houses discounted for quick sales. Was on one of the parents' FB pages whose children survived and he has massive survivor's guilt. Says he regrets standing outside, also said, I was always one of those people that said if it happened at my kid's school I'd go in, and I didn't. Friends and neighbors' kids died. He's posted clips of him driving near the school at all hours of the night. I know he's not alone, and I'm not sure they'll ever get over it. Something has to change. A good step would be arresting every single one of those officers standing in the hallway. What's really an extra level of sick on top of it all is that they went in there and got their own kids and they left the other kids. And then they stopped the parents from going to save their own kids. That makes no sense at all. It's almost as if they were on the same side as the killer. It's almost as if they're accomplices. They restrained one mom, then she was able to talk herself out of it. She ran around the school, jumped a fence, then went and found and rescued her kids. Now that is bravery. I don't understand how the entire police force hasn't already resigned in shame. Especially the police chief. They're not going to. You can see from the lies they've spewed to defend their failures. They'll need to be arrested. Pretty sick knowing the governor and head of the state police were blatantly lying, claiming an armed school officer confronted the shooter right away, and it could have been worse if it wasn't for the brave officers. Cops don't face meaningful consequences in this country. Why would they resign?